and welcome to Women in Sport with the Daily Express. This is a series where we celebrate women in sport, but we also talk about some of the issues which women are still facing within the world of sport, and perhaps some of the issues that have been addressed. But of course, there's always some more that do need to be addressed along the way. Now, if you have any comments for the guests or questions that we have on this series, then do pop them in the comment sections below, and then we will bring them up accordingly. If you're watching on Daily Express Sport, hello. If you're watching on our Mirror Sport pages as well, hello. Or perhaps on Twitter, hello. We've got lots of you tuning in today, and we've got a very special guest indeed. She has come from Croatia, but she's landed back in LA, so that might give you a little bit of an insight. But to give you more of a clue, we're now going to show some highlights from the Red Bull Street Style Football Finals. Let's take a look.
Now show me what you got. Now show me what you got.
So, Caitlyn, obviously it gives me no further ado. You are officially the world champion of football freestyling for women. How does that feel? And welcome aboard to She Can.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you guys for having me, and for all of the viewers who are watching. It feels surreal, absolutely surreal, and I don't really think I can think of any other words to describe it. I did a couple interviews after I got off the stage, so I've gotten to think about this a little, but
Yeah.
I've been freestyling for 9 years, and every single time somebody asks me, what's your goal? Like, what's the big moment you're looking for with freestyle? My first answer is always, I want to win a world championship. And you know, I've competed on the world stage so many times. I've been on the podium several times, but never won the world championships. I've never even beaten Agushka in the final. She is an incredible freestyler, and I'm kind of still trying to take it in here, even though here we are, I think 2 weeks later.
Yeah. And in terms of you know, all of that training and all, you know, working towards it, and obviously being there, you know, only a couple of years ago and competing and not quite coming first place and going through that journey, it must take a massive emotional roller coaster for you, right?
It absolutely did. You know, I think that was kind of the biggest benefit and the biggest challenge when it came to freestyle is there was just so much emotional turmoil to go through every single day with training, but especially on the competition stages when, you know, you're putting everything that you are out there on the stage. And this is the moment where all of those hours come into play. And when you make mistakes on the stage, it kind of feels like all of those hours of training just didn't amount to anything. And it's really difficult to get over it.
Yeah, really, really difficult. I mean, I've spoken to people across the sport, but lots of people say that it actually drives them to do better and to kind of be like, okay, that's a loss, settle in it for a few days, and then I'm just going to come back better. And that's exactly what you did, right?
Absolutely. You know, I was always the obsessive type of athlete, no matter what sport I was in. And I think my favorite part of freestyle is that it's such a self-driven sport. No one's going to tell you, you need to do this, you need to do that, you can do better. It's all on you. And it was up to me to pick myself up after every single one of those losses and tell myself, okay, this is what we're going to do better. Next year is going to be better. And I really had to believe in that.
Yeah. And you did, and you achieved it, and you're still in that bubble off the adrenaline. But I guess for people that, you know, may not know a lot about freestyling, if you can kind of give them an indicator of just how intense the training and the sport actually is. You know, it's not just a fun hobby. It's very much an intense sport. So kind of give an indicator for me, if you will.
So my usual training regime is anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, 8 hours if I'm feeling extra hardworking, every single day, 7 days a week. If I get a rest day off, I kind of feel a little lazy, but I try to fit it in here and there. But freestyle itself is a mixture of juggling with a soccer ball, acrobatics, breakdance. It's a lot of very intensive underground sports that really just incorporate all of the muscles and all of the movements in your body.
Yeah. And you say it's a full body workout, but from the video that we can see, obviously there is lots of going up and down and here, there and everywhere. I'm guessing your core is the most engaged, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, sometimes I'll finish training and, you know, looking at the sport, you would think, oh yeah, your legs should be the one that get the most workout. And they do. But no, sometimes I'll finish training and I'll just go, oh, don't make me laugh. Don't make me talk. Everything.
Yeah. I was just looking at that and I just thought, oh God, it kind of looks like crunches, but on like a major scale, like a Zumba class with crunches. Now I've obviously never done it. And you've probably been asked this cliche question a few times, but for people who don't know you and want to know more about you, when did you learn your, I guess, well, first off, your technique, but in fact, scrap that question. When did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
I think I was lucky enough to figure that out very early on. I got into freestyle when I was about 17 years old, so I was still in high school. Mm-hmm. And I joined a team very shortly after that. I was very much an introvert, shy, did not enjoy the spotlight and the stage. That was tough. But about a year and a half into freestyle was my first international competition. It was my first World Open Championship. And I had the unfortunate luck of battling the girl who went on to win the entire competition.
Yeah.
But it actually worked out in the end because, you know, it took all of the pressure off me. And I was just able to get up there and show my freestyle and show the very first time I got to show my signature trick on stage. Yeah. And the feedback and the audience and my own personal emotions from that were kind of what indicated to me, this is something more than just a hobby. You know, this is something that I really want to pursue.
So Tommy, who is the producer behind the scenes, has done some stalking on your Instagram, and you did just say about that, you know, the new tricks. Where do you come up with these new tricks, and how do you make them original so that they stand out against your competitors and your opponents?
So I have a background in gymnastics. So my most well-known signature trick is called the cat flip, and it's the trick that I did at the very end of that clip. That was actually a suggestion from one of my friends who's very into rhythmic gymnastics.
Okay.
And, you know, there's a ball incorporated there. I think you can do something similar. And I kind of stumbled into that variation of the trick on accident. But for the rest of them, I'm really just a student of human movement. I love watching people move. I love seeing potential. So I'll just study people and see, where can I fit a ball in there? Kind of weird, but it works.
And obviously there's a men's championship and there's a women's championship. Has that always been the case?
For as long as I've been competing, that has been the case. Early on into the sport, I can't necessarily say. I believe there was, but, you know, the ratio of men to women in the sport is still so ridiculously skewed. Whenever I kind of give the numbers to my friends off no particular data, I estimate it's about like 85% men, if not more. Okay. So especially early on, if there was a women's championship, there was a very small number of women.
And do you think that's to do with education? Do you think that's little girls in school not being introduced to football, but perhaps dance, and not realizing that they can sort of intertwine them both. What do you think the issue is about why there's such a gap between the genders?
I think it's education. I think a huge part of it is representation. You know, seeing somebody up on that stage who's a female, same race, same looks, you know, same background. I think from having spoken to so many people, it's really difficult to insert yourself into a sport when you don't see a niche for yourself, when you don't see a place where, oh, I can belong here. And it's very much intimidating for women and little girls who can't see that, and to go, oh, well, I've never heard of this, I've never seen this, but I think I can make this happen.
Yeah, I can see how that would be intimidating. What would the advice be then from you to encourage them to take part?
I would say the best parts of yourself and the best parts of your life are really just discovered when you push yourself beyond comfort, beyond known boundaries. When you push yourself to work harder and to try new things and be places that aren't necessarily comfortable, that's how you discover more of yourself. And those are the most memorable moments of my life. And even though something seems challenging, even though something seems like, you know, I might not belong, give it a try anyway, because if nothing else, at the end of the day, it'll be a memory and it'll be an experience.
100%. It'll be a memory, and not everyone, as you said yourself, walks out there and is a world champion. You've got to get a lot of setbacks in order to get what you want, and you can put that to anything in life, right? You can put that to your standard job, let alone in a sporting job. You know, you've got to go for a lot of interviews. I mean, I remember when I graduated from university, I applied for so many jobs, so many rejections, and then you just got to keep on going, right? But enough about me. This is all about you. We're gonna bring up a question now, if we can. I think we've got one. Laura, would you like it to be integrated and for men and women to compete in the same competition rather than separately?
So I have two different parts to this answer. For myself personally, I would actually love that. I think it would be an incredible challenge. I definitely think it would be emphasis on the challenge aspect of that, but I think that would really be a huge step towards equality in the sport. However, as far as the growth of the sport would go, I would actually prefer to keep them separate. I believe they are sort of different styles of freestyle growing in their own different ways. And the freestylers and the females and the males really put their own spin on what freestyle soccer, freestyle football is. And I think keeping them separate is what allows them to grow in their own unique ways and not make people say, oh, well, she's just doing male freestyle or he's just doing female freestyle, and to keep them their own unique thing.
Yeah. And in terms of how you've been treated as a woman in comparison to men within this world of sport, has there been any defining moments for you that you can remember?
There have been several. Luckily, the majority of the men I've come across, the majority of the freestylers I've come across have been insanely supportive and have made a potentially very difficult journey much easier. But I definitely have met setbacks, mostly just from random people who aren't necessarily in the sport, but just watching and feel the need to insert their opinions into what I do. You know, we always get those people. But there will be people who say, you know, women don't belong in sport, you know. The most memorable comment that I got was actually from an older lady here in the US, and she was watching me do a show, and she looked at me and she went, "That's not ladylike." And I said, "Sorry, why does that matter?"
Yeah, surely that's not what it's about. So would you say it's more a generational thing? Because I've spoken to lots of people and they said, you know, younger generations now kind of are being far more open-minded and perhaps more educated about these subjects, and are far more open to diversity in comparison to older generations who've been brought up in very different societal values.
I would definitely say the generational aspect has a huge impact on it. You know, a lot of the people who support me, a lot of the people who come to these shows tend to be the younger generation. But there also are several of like my parents' age generation who are extremely supportive, and they have some of my favorite comments that I remember, because they go, you know, my daughter watches you on stage. I want my daughter to be able to see that she can do the same things that you're doing. And those are the things that I always remember.
That's lovely. That's so nice. And in terms of social media, obviously that's a huge thing at the moment, to try and battle that, as well as try and concentrate on the job at hand. Do you ever turn off notifications and not look at your social media because you're afraid of any backlash on there, or you're afraid of any of the conversation which is happening with on there, which is making which would perhaps distract you from the job at hand?
Oh yeah. I think it gets to be a little frustrating with some of the people in my life who aren't necessarily as involved with freestyle, because, you know, sometimes I'll be constantly replying back and forth and then just go silent, because I think as much as it is important to take in the world around you and to take in people's opinions and let them shape your own to some degree, it's very easy, especially in the modern world, to get overwhelmed by opinions and words and things that people are saying when they don't necessarily understand the entirety of what you're doing. So I do, especially when it comes to competitions, tend to just go completely dark. I think I'll look at my phone in the morning of the competition. Competition's usually early evening. And then if I look at my phone by that evening, I'm lucky. But usually I'm either excited from a win or disappointed from a loss. And that's not really a time when I want to invite a lot of outside opinions.
Yeah. On something which is so personal to you. And obviously your trade, this is, you know, full time for you, and your reaction from your family has been extremely positive. Were you at all at any point worried what they might say when you said, look, this is what I'm going to be doing now? You know, perhaps it was a financial aspect for them, or were there any concerns from them?
Actually, not as much as people would expect. I got very lucky in that they were kind of the ones to give me the push to go full time with freestyle. You know, my mother was the one who told me. I was in college at the time when I sort of made the decision to shift entirely over to freestyle. And she said, school will always be there. You can always come back to it, because I always enjoyed learning. But you can always come back to school, but freestyle is what's happening now. And there is a finite period of time when you can compete and excel in this sport, and you love it, and you might as well go for it.
Mm, mm. And that's a risk which is most certainly, obviously, paid off for you. So you're at the top now, and now is it just a case of being in the moment, celebrating? And I hate to be one of those people who says, so what next? But I mean, you know, you obviously want to enjoy the moment, but I wouldn't be a journalist if I wouldn't ask that question. What is next? Is it just to stay consistent, or is there something else which is on the horizon?
I am always looking to what's next. So actually, that's a perfect question. The most immediate goal, because I'm very competition oriented, is to continue competing, defending that title. You know, we've had several very outstanding freestylers in the community who have racked up multiple world championships. I want to be the next one on that list. I want to be the top one on that list. And I want to continue competing for as long as I can. But on the other hand, I also want to grow this sport. I want to, one of the consistent things that I do every single year is I go out to Jamaica and I do shows, I do clinics, and I teach particularly the young girls, but all of the young athletes out there, freestyle, and just all of the characteristics and all of the lessons that I've learned with freestyle in order to help them move forward with their life. Because I think it's changed my life. I think it's just added so much value to my life. And it's a sport that's very, very easy for anybody to integrate. We have a saying, all you need is a ball. And even more than that, all you really need is some sort of round shaped objects. Freestyle is freestyle with oranges, apples. I did a ping pong ball in Croatia. But it's very easy to learn all of the lessons from freestyle compared to much more financially demanding sports.
And I guess that brings me to my next question then. That was a good interlude. For people who don't know a lot about the sport, which to you would be a crazy question, I know, but there are lots of people that don't know about it. I don't know about all the ins and outs of it, and quite a few people in the UK probably wouldn't either. In terms of financially, is it all done off sponsorship and then obviously game, winning prize money, etc.? How does the finance work? Is there something, government schemes and stuff, which in the UK we have here? How does it work for you?
So for myself, primarily freestyle, I'm living off of the social media aspect of it, posting the videos, doing the brand sponsorship, brand collaborations. That's where my primary income is. Secondary would be competitions. That's generally how I'd say about 98% of freestylers tend to live. Some of them tend to actually have primary jobs as well, which is extremely difficult to balance with the
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
constraints. But I would say brand sponsorships, social media, and competition fees would be the top three.
The top three. And do you find that over the recent years, obviously you've become more and more successful, but have you found with massive companies, obviously such as Red Bull, and other huge corporate companies sponsoring and doing massive drives for gender equality, that you have got more lucrative deals and perhaps you have had more interest?
Absolutely. I think not only has it been a favorite part of the work that I've been doing to be in the front of all of these, gender equality drives and things like that. But definitely having been in a niche within my own niche, having been a female freestyler in this sport, definitely there are more focused deals coming my way, and it's been incredible, and not necessarily something that I had come into this with the knowledge of like, okay, I see like a potential for success here, I want to do this. It was more, I see something I want to do, I see a goal I want to pursue, I see a platform I want to drive forward. And it just so happened that the world's values ended up aligning with that and just allowing for much more success.
It all came at the right time. And do the men get the same as the women now, or do you know if there's still a pay gap within this sport?
I would definitely say there's a pay gap within the sport. I wouldn't say that there's like a standard pay gap, because a lot of it depends on the country you're in, the level of freestyle. Social media numbers tend to skew things many ways. I think freestyle is unique in that a lot of the females tend to earn more than a lot of the males. Not necessarily all of them, of course, but I definitely would say there's still a pay gap, and I think it will still be a while before we sort of even that out.
And obviously you said that, in the recent years, there has been so much more positivity. If you were to look into the next few years, what would be key defining points which would enable less of a gap between both genders and to be treated exactly the same, whether that be from a social media post all the way through to a final in a world championship?
I think it would be the desire to understand more so than anything else. It's not admiration for the sport or things like that. It's just the desire to understand what freestyle is, what makes it different, how hard everyone's working. And I think if everyone goes in with just that simple desire to understand it, it will enable so much more equality, because it'll take away so many of the stereotypes and boundaries that are already set in place, because people from years ago have set them in place and they just don't question it. And I think when people look to question it, that's when we'll really be able to break down those boundaries and improve the sport.
So it's having open conversations in rooms with people who are making the decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is obviously why we do this series. But to give people a glimpse of what you do day to day, obviously you said, you might be training 7 days a week. Talk me through from the morning you wake up all the way through to the evening. Give me your standard day.
So I'm very much a night owl. So I will wake up later than most people would assume, like 8, 9 o'clock. generally from the moment I wake up, I am either training, thinking about training, or fueling myself for training, particularly in the 2 to 3 months leading up to a competition. So I wake up, make breakfast, make my caffeine, which is my lifeblood. As soon as the gym room opens up where I go train, I go out there, I train for roughly 2 hours, take a break, go eat, think about how training went, and then I'll usually go back for another training session. After that training session for anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, really, I'll come home, kind of rest a little bit, ice any sort of injuries I have, which there are many. And then if I have enough energy, I will go for a gym workout normal session afterwards. And then by the time that is done, if I have the chance, I'll go for recovery in like the spa or a nice long bath. And then it's time to go to sleep.
So I think, me going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, I'm like, Cora, I've had a really intense week. And then you say something like that. It's just, I mean, fair play to you. I know you're an athlete, so it's very, very different. But yeah, I mean, completely huge credit to you. In terms of what you do at the gym, is it a mix of cardio and weights? Obviously, you need a lot of strength to be, quite literally diving onto the floor, coming back up again. Obviously, a lot in the shoulders and the arms. But talk me through a classic gym routine for you, because obviously, I have got no idea what that might involve.
So I have the benefit of having studied kinesiology, sports science when I was in college. Okay. And I love incorporating any of the knowledge that I can into my workouts. Yeah. So typically gym sessions will start with about 20 minutes of cardio. And then, because I've already done quite a bit of cardio by that point, 20 minutes of cardio, I'll get off that and I'll consider, okay, what are some of the tricks that I want to work on this week? And what are some of the supporting muscles that I can work on? Generally, those I actually tend to target primarily upper body and core, because I feel like my legs get enough of a workout. I need to give them time to rest. So a lot of it is core, a lot of it is obliques, side to side movements, really just strengthening all of the supporting muscles like hip flexors and things like that tend to get injured.
Yeah. And obviously that is something as a woman that, we are not necessarily built like men in terms of our center. That's where we carry our most fat because of, childbirth. So having a really toned middle center is quite difficult. So I'm going to ask this, and I'm sure I'll be shocked. What's the longest plank you can hold?
Sadly, it's not as shocking as you think. I think my best friend does better. I think I could push it to 2.5, maybe 3 minutes if I really just want to be.
Obviously that's far better than me.
My best friend back when we were in high school could do it for like 10 minutes, and I don't even think that's human. That's
not. Do you have any days where you have low moods, or you're battling everything from hormones, which is obviously something that men don't have to be dealing with, etc. And there is one thing that I do speak about, and I think it does need to have more of an open conversation about. And that is your hormonal cycle, and which is why so many young girls do drop out of sport, because their first period comes and they can't think of anything worse than moving about, staining, etc., leaking, all of these really embarrassing but completely normal things to be happening to them. What advice would you give? Because obviously you're training 6-7 days a week, and that is something that you have to deal with as well.
The best advice that I can give is be gentle with yourself. And it doesn't sound like it based off of my schedule, but hormonal cycles, periods are definitely the exception. I kind of tend to treat it sort of like injury period. If I feel okay, I'll go train, and that's a plus for the day. That's not something I accounted for. But if not, take the time, rest, do more mental training. It never really stops with me, but take the time to just rest, recover, treat yourself, and allow your body to physically recover while you mentally progress, because it's a balance of both. And I think it is that way with any sport. whilst you're not moving physically, I think there's work that you can do mentally. And I don't think you need to be physically moving every single day. And that pressure on people makes it so difficult to keep up with, because it's so easy to go, oh, I broke my routine. There's no point in going back tomorrow.
Yeah. And then that's just another day miss, and then that turns into a week, etc. I've definitely been there. A couple of questions ago, because I realised we were taking up too much of your time. In terms of your team around you and who supports you, just talk about your mental headspace. Do you have a coach who can help you mentally, and obviously everything through from mental to physical? Talk me through the team.
So I actually do not have a coach. I have a strength trainer who I work with primarily just for like the physical musculature. But as far as like mental headspace coaching on site when I'm at competitions, it's myself. If I'm lucky, my close friends group will be there, and I definitely can't underrate them. They are a huge aspect of what adds to my freestyle, my mental headspace. Two of my best friends were actually on site in Croatia when I won, which was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
But I definitely accredit a lot of my success to them, because they were with me the entire day, but I could tell them at any point, hey guys, I need to check out. I need to just get myself mentally prepared, not really speak to anybody. And they just went, okay, you do your thing. You let us know what you need. If you don't want people by you, we got you. We'll be the bodyguards. And whilst I wouldn't call them like my team, they really do act like my team, and we act as a team for each other.
Yeah, that close support network is so important. And one final question, which I ask on every She Can episode: if you had a magic wand to change something right now, literally right now, we're not talking about conversations in rooms, we've skipped that bit, what would you change within the world of women in sport, and why?
I would change the perspective that a lot of the world has on what women in sport look like and should look like. Because whilst I am blessed, there's a lot more generally equal perspective here in the US. I wouldn't say completely equal. I have come to realize it is definitely more disbalanced around the world. And so many people just don't even believe that women should be in sports. And I think that's a huge barrier for people to overcome. So if I could wave my magic wand, I would make people understand that. Yeah, that would be my goal. I would change that perspective for people, and I think it would be astounding the number of incredible female athletes we would find as a result.
100%. There is so much sexualization of women in the world of sport as well, when actually you're looking at it straight in the face, and actually it's talent as well, of course. Okay, well, I could speak to you all afternoon here, but unfortunately we can't. I realise you've come off the back of the biggest win ever. You are the world champion. Just let that sink in. It probably won't for a very long time. But thank you so much for coming on. You've been inspirational, to say the least. And we really do appreciate you coming on. I realise you're across the pond and you've come out your way to do this. So thank you.
It's been incredible being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for making me sit down and letting me take in everything. And,
yeah, exactly. Well, you can catch Caitlyn, and we'll tag her on all of our socials. You can see what she's up to, all these amazing brand deals that she's getting. You can have a look and see her outrageous talent on there. So we will tag her, whether that be on Twitter, Instagram, we'll give her a tag. And then, of course, you can catch up with all of our She Can episodes over on our Daily Express Sport Facebook, where we've got a playlist. We speak to the best guests every single week within the world of sport. So go take a look. And we have just launched a very new, exciting women's football team social media accounts. So that is also another thing to follow. They are at our Women's Football on Twitter and Reach Women's Football on Facebook. So if you're a fan of soccer or football, then go take a look there. You might see a few Women in Sport episodes over on there too. So go support them, because this is where the talent is coming from. But that is all from us on Women in Sport #SheCan. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will be back next week.